Welcome to the Comics Experiment, the show right here at Comicstorian that goes live at our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Comicstorian, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's then uploaded unedited to our Patreon, patreon.com/Comicstorian, and YouTube memberships, where you get early access to this show. Then we upload it to the YouTubes, where you can watch it every Saturday morning, and iTunes, and Spotify, and SoundCloud. This is the show where we sit around and discuss topics that are interesting within comic books. We go through various theories, we go through various discussions over like the ideas and concepts behind comic books, and sometimes we get lazy and just pull up a list from another website and make fun of it. You can watch this show all the time. We love doing it, and today's sponsor is G Fuel. I've already mostly finished my G Fuel, where right now you can get 10% off your order if you go to G Fuel and pop in the code COMICS at checkout. Yeah! As you can tell, I'm your main host, the Bloody Bear, known as Gloomy Bear, joined by a Loch Ness Monster from the video game Black Desert Online and generic Halloween Lumberjack number 2. What happened to one?
He died.
Whose blood do you think that is?
Today's episode is going to be a bit weird, guys. We're going to talk about some of the more topical stuff that came out, some of our favorite horror stories within comic books and stuff like that. It's not going to be a very long discussion because if you looked at the title, I got to conduct an interview with James Tynion, or Tynion, but however you really want to pronounce it. He doesn't get offended either way, but if I remember correctly from our talks, it was Tynion. Yeah. And if I'm wrong, I really do apologize because I'm notorious for messing up names. But either way, he is the upcoming writer for Batman. He'll be taking over at issue 86. He is currently writing Justice League Dark. You may know him from his horror books, Something is Killing the Children. His other indie book, The Woods. You may know him from Batman and Robin Eternal. You may know him from... What else has he done? Because you've gone farther back with him than that, I believe.
Well, he's currently also doing the Legion of Doom issues in between from the Justice League.
Yes,
he's doing Justice League Dark.
Yep.
He did a few Batmans back in the day. I think he was on a different Batman book. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, though.
Detective.
Detective
was amazing. He did the whole Clayface thing.
Yeah.
And we
he did Clayface?
Yep.
Oh, that was the
And we talk about
story.
why he chose Clayface to be the monster, how his treatment of Man-Bat in the Justice League Dark is completely different from that.
Sure.
We talk about what he's doing on the upcoming Batman, what he's allowed to say, because this is still kind of early for discussing
We still got,
what,
like 4 or 5 issues of King's Reign?
Yeah. So he didn't go too much in it, but he was able to allude to quite a few things. How it is working with Scott Snyder, Joshua Williamson on the entire Justice League thing, and what they're doing with the Year of the Villain, and all of this stuff. It's a great chat, and it's going to be popping up on this video in about 10-15 minutes. But while we're chugging our G Fuel and we're having a great time in costumes, Andy, what's your favorite horror story? What I broke.
Did you start the 3 beers in the topic early?
Another show that we filmed live on our channel, twitch.tv/Comicstorian.
Good plug.
Yeah, that was a good plug.
Yeah.
It's very hot in this.
You think that's hot? I can't even see where you are. I'm going
You
on
do look
sound.
really hot in that.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm almost like a dinosaur. I can't see it. Just going on sound.
It's not how
I
dinosaurs
don't think
work at all.
dinosaurs... I'm pretty sure they can see.
You're thinking bats. I think.
Gee, I'm a bat. It's Halloween.
This is when do bats go?
Some sort of weird bat spin ads.
So what's your favorite horror comic book, Andy? Because we got to kill 10 minutes. Oh, no. Better question. Dan earlier asked, he said, what we should do is make our own Justice League Dark, but in Marvel. And I said, I think that's
so Midnight Suns. Yeah.
So, Andy, explain
To
to
which
Dan
I
what
respond with, who?
Exactly.
Explain to Dad what the Midnight Suns are, because I don't know where he is.
The Midnight Suns were basically Marvel's version of Justice League Dark.
Oh, okay.
However, they did it first.
Oh, okay.
It was from like the 70s and 80s, I believe. It was Ghost Rider, Hannibal King, Blade for a little while. I believe Doctor Strange.
Blade's an Avenger now, in literally everything Avenger related.
It's true, yeah. It's weird.
They make sure that you know.
It's almost like he has a movie coming up.
Maybe.
Is it a movie or a show?
It's a movie.
No.
It is a movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it?
It is a movie.
I know Ghost Rider keeps getting tossed around. Apparently he was on Hulu. No, he's not on Hulu. Now he's part of
Who
Disney+.
knows?
Who knows?
Just make it.
My favorite horror comics of all time.
Yes.
2 spring to mind immediately. One being American Vampire by Scott Snyder.
Is that really horror, though?
There are very horror-ish aspects to it.
It's like superhero vampires.
Earlier, it's very horror.
I like how you didn't discount what I said.
Well, it does kind of turn into like superhero vampires.
Right.
And then it's no longer running. It was finished. Lock and Key by Joe Hill is fantastic.
Who's now currently doing some horror books in DC Black Label.
Yes, that is true, Ben. Thank you. It's almost as if I thought of that.
Which different Joker one is he doing?
It's true. No, his are actually horror based. So
Oh,
Joe
okay.
Hill is actually the son of Stephen King.
Wait, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Huh.
Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King. Lock and Key was kind of his haunted house demon thing. I want to say it was 6 volumes. I forget how many individual issues.
I have them
I
here.
only read it in graphic novel form. It is fantastic if you're looking for kind of a spooky fantasy haunted housey thingy. That's a good description.
That's a great
So
description.
for me-
I know exactly what I would be getting into now.
So for me, immediately off the top of my head, you guys know I'm a big fan of Scott Snyder's work.
Yes.
And 2 of his immediately popped to mind. Witches. and
Yes,
Witches
fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
And Rot World, if you want to take a superhero spin on it. Ooh. You even liked Rot World.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I've
That
been
was his
sitting
Swamp
here
Thing
trying to
run,
think.
right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Swamp Thing, and he goes into the rot, and then it turns out it's been like 50 years or something
Yep.
while he's down there, and he thinks it's been like 2 days.
Yes, that's
you know
an
that
amazing
never
older
happens.
one that's complete. You can read it all in one sitting
That's
right
good.
now.
Yeah, very good story.
What about you? What are your favorite horror books, Dan?
Actually, I was having trouble even thinking of any. Rot World, I think, is
get
the.
scared.
It's scary.
Well, it's just not usually my.
your
not
cup
my
of
cup of
tea.
tea.
Yeah, I got you.
I mean, as people know, I don't like scary things.
Which is why it's hilarious when you see scary things. He didn't go see It with us.
No.
Honestly,
course not.
That was one of the funniest horror movies I've ever seen.
I know, it really was.
Well, it too.
That,
That's
yeah,
what you were
it
saying.
too.
It
Yeah,
one
yeah,
was
yeah.
still pretty funny.
I would say it was less funny than if the kids'
You
reaction.
agree with me or I shoot you. No, no.
Don't pull that out of there. You know how hard it is to get this thing to
It's back in
sit.
there. I got it.
How hard it is
It's
to get
already
this
at a
thing to
weird angle.
sit
It is.
properly. Yeah.
Early,
Stupid
Andy was
shotgun.
seeing, like, trying to get it out, and he's like, how do they do this in video games and movies?
Hold on, I got it. Nope. All right. Now I can't get it back in there. That's the problem.
All your weapons just start lining up on our table.
He's like, there it is. We got this one.
If
This is
the
my
Deadites show
machete."
up, I'm all set. What was I starting to say? What were we talking about now? I don't even remember anymore.
Dan's not afraid of it.
Oh yes.
It's a
I would
weird
say a couple
episode.
other Scott Snyder books are Wake is very good. The Wake.
Wake is good.
That's
Chat mentioned one that I'm a huge fan of. Arkham
Blackest Night.
Asylum, A Serious
Yeah.
Night on the Serious Hill. Or Serious House.
yes.
I'll count that.
Serious House on a Serious
Blackest
Hill.
Night.
It's got some spooky moments.
I'll count
I'll
it.
give it to him. It's not a horror comic, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's like
In Dan terms,
Is that what
gotta
we're rolling?
read
I have a different tier list.
like, I
Most
can
people
only-
are like, here's the list. And I'm like, here's the list.
Dan's like, I can only read it on a Saturday at noon while standing in the yard.
I need light shining on me
Yeah,
from
yeah,
all
all times.
directions. Honestly, half the time when I get spooked, I start walking around with my back to every wall.
Sure.
He
That way they
actually
can't,
does. What
they
were we
can't
do?
sneak up
when
on
we
you. I'm
used to
with you.
do, you're
Makes
gonna like
sense.
this. When we used to play the scary games here at the office, right?
Yes.
When we started doing Twitch initially, we used to do gaming stuff, and then we would do these podcasts on the same channel.
Yes.
Many people know that. But one thing we did to try and get it off the ground was we did scary game nights with Dan and Natalie, where Dan would freak out while Natalie was trying to cheer him on or tear him apart, whichever was more convenient at the time. Some of the games
I
were
do remember watching one. I want to say you guys were playing
Probably
the Evil
Outlast.
Within.
Oh, okay, Evil Within.
And you actually
2.
screamed and jumped out of your chair.
Yes. And for everyone wonders if that was staged, that was his legitimate reaction. The reason we had to stop doing the series is Dan was having like mental breakdowns. I'm not
was.
even joking.
No, I was.
Yeah.
I was. So first off, Benny would constantly be like, Dan, you need to stop screaming that loud. And I'd be like, Benny, I have no control over how loud I am screaming right now. But because when we were playing Outlast 2 and there's like occasionally just that creepy shadow in the...
Yes.
I got really, really creeped out because
Sure.
we would always end stream and it would be super dark out.
Right,
So
so now
I'd
you
make
have to
him
drive home.
I would make him watch me walk to my car.
I had to walk him to his car.
No, you didn't have to walk me to my car. I just needed to make sure someone was watching just in
someone had a line
case.
of
We'll
sight.
protect you
Yes,
from
thank
evil.
you.
You're fine.
Yes.
Everyone knows a shotgun will help.
I would like everyone to know that Dan is also 45 years old.
You look good for your age.
Well, thanks.
So I think that's enough of us rambling to fluff out the episode, but I think we just have a little bit of fun. I wanted to do some Halloween stuff, but we didn't want to like spend talking about scary stuff and stuff for 45 minutes and really not have no purpose. So those are some great horror books that we enjoyed. This is why Dan's a big baby, but we love him anyway.
Actually, the funny thing about me being scared of horror things is whenever I come up with like horror ideas, it's always incredibly dark and really, really intense.
Cutting your victims up and turning them into like a costume.
You mean like Quilt Man?
Quilt Man.
I hope you guys enjoyed. I will put a little indication at the bottom so you know to jump to this portion. But now we're going to cut to the interview with James Tynion talking about all the stuff I mentioned.
Justice League Dark. And all of his
My brain is now
individual
cooling
comics.
off.
He's like, my brain is gone now that my hat's off. What the hell?
We'll be here at the end of the episode when you guys are done with that. All right. Yeah, we can just go ahead and get started then. Where do you want to? Do you want to start? You know what? Let's start with Justice League Dark. Let's start there. Let's go ahead and Justice League Dark's been great. I've been enjoying it since the beginning. The big question I've had when I asked a couple of the people on the staff, like, what would you ask him when we finally got to talk to him about Justice League? The big question was, do we foresee you getting any Justice League Dark involved in your Batman? I don't know if you could say any of that. Those characters popping up.
Oh,
and the follow-up was also, why is Bobo Chimp awesome?
Well, Bobo is one of the best DC Comics characters. He is absolutely ludicrous. It's just writing a drunk chimpanzee makes any book better. Just flat out. When we started playing with him and some of the side material around the Dark Knight's Metal, it was just like, okay, this is a character who needs to come back to the forefront. And when I was building the lineup of Justice League Dark, that was a big part of it. Is like I was a huge fan of the Shadow Pact book back in the day, and that that had Detective Chimp in a big way, like up front and center, dealing with all sorts of magical characters and the Oblivion Bar and all of that. So I wanted to bring some of that into the series and just give it that flavor. But in terms of Batman, there is obviously a Batman character in my Justice League Dark run, which is Man-Bat. And Man-Bat is a character who I love writing. And, he's not the first Batman villain that I've written as a part of a team book where you wouldn't expect him as a member. And, now that I'm back on the main title, could we possibly see some of these Gotham monsters popping up in some way? I can't say so much, but it is it's funny because in the same way that in my Detective Comics run, I had Clayface in a big role. I only actually wrote 2 stories that had Clayface as a Batman villain. I haven't actually gotten to write that side of that character. In the same way, I haven't really been able to write Man-Bat as in his more villainous and more frightening form. I guess a little bit in the last couple of issues of Justice League Dark, but that's he's being manipulated by magical forces, like we all are from time to time.
I like his transformation to get because you were like, well, I've made regular Man-Bat look normal. I need to make him look villainous and monstrous to be tied into this, so you can see the very clear indicator that this is not the same Man-Bat. I was playing. After the Dr. Fate and the Order, the Sons of Order, Chaos
Lords of Order,
yeah. I'd fallen off right there, so I was catching up right before we had talked, and I opened up the latest issue because normally I'll catch the latest issue and then go back to see what's going on. And I'm like, what happened to Man-Bat?
Oh yeah, no, we went all out in these last few issues, and I think it's part of it is it's reading amazing books like The Immortal Hulk over at Marvel right now, which has had some of the best body horror in all of comics. And it's just like, okay, I've been doing some spooky body horror stuff in Justice League Dark, but I need to have a few moments where that comes in a big way. So yeah, that's bringing.
So you brought.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, yeah, this is for you to be able to say whatever you want. Go ahead.
No, all I was saying is just, I wanted to, part of the whole point of having Man-Bat as a member of Justice League Dark was to have a mad scientist be a part of the team. We sort of each character kind of oversees a different dominion of horror in a way, and Matt, like having a mad scientist, that kind of archetype as part of the team, someone who is, you know, approaching magic and all of this horror from a scientific angle and is excited by it and wants to research it and dig into it. That was something I really wanted to do. So seeing him go full, like, you know, like Herbert West Reanimator, scary, like, you know, with the glowing and like the injection into his neck and transforming into the most horrifying, you know, bat thing that he could possibly be. That was something that I've wanted to do for a while.
Actually, it's one thing that I've really enjoyed about Justice League Dark. Like, a lot of team books like to just go, everyone's on the team, and there's no actual answer behind it, even if it doesn't work for the character. And I love that your take on it has been like, here's the team, and they're all people that work individually, so they don't actually want to be in a team, and some of them don't even call themselves in the team, but they're always here, and you know they're always here, but they're not actually on the team, you know?
Right. No, and
that's one thing I've liked about it. You've really respected the way the characters would act in this type of a situation, as opposed to just, everyone's on the team. Constantine and Swamp Thing are your best buds now. Like
exactly, and that was definitely part of the plan from the beginning. It was meant to be, this is the oddball team, because Wonder Woman goes to the people you would expect to be a part of the actual team, and they say no. And she sort of collects these oddball monsters, and they become this like tight-knit family of oddballs who are still very individualistic and still going off in their own directions. And Bobo is still getting drunk in the Oblivion bar, and you know they're getting into all sorts of mischief. But it is still, you know, it's a magic apocalypse going on, so they still have a lot of work to do.
Well, going back to Bobo with his Oblivion bar, when you started this, did you decide you wanted him to have the sword and become this all-powerful being who chimp with a sword that can tap into the other universe? Try to think of the official name. You had the arc where they went to the other universe and he.
Oh yeah, the Mira is so it's the Sword of Night, and Nightmaster was
Nightmaster. That's the word. I wanted to say Black Knight, but that's Marvel, and I'm like, that's not right.
But yeah, no, I wanted to do that from the beginning because a lot of it was just wanting to tap into the Shadow Pact era and tap into some of his relationships from that book. And Nightmaster was such a big part of that. And we saw him die in Dark Knight's Metal. So it was something that I wanted to pick up from what, you know, he was killed by the Batman Who Laughs in that story. Because they were using the Oblivion bar as kind of this, you know, retreat while the, you know, Dark Multiverse was invading. So it was something that I wanted to carry forward, some of the beats that had been laid down, and actually like live in the horror of, you know, you see your best friend killed by this impossible monster from another dimension. And then you are left with all of this responsibility. So it's, you know, this is a character who has always been an irresponsible character and a bit of a drunken lech. And now he is actually, you know, he's left the bar, and he's more than the bar. He's left with the responsibility of becoming this great hero who he's never seen himself as a great hero. He's a detective. You know, he has a great mind, and he has a great amount of confidence in his ability to solve a crime, but he doesn't have great confidence in his ability to actually save people because he's never really been able to save himself. And there's just that kind of internal conflict, just, you know, it really drew out a lot of his character for me. And it's like, I've always loved sad monsters as a kind of character archetype, which is why I've filled my entire team with sad monsters. But yeah, no, that's he's a character. I love writing like all of the characters in that book, but Bobo in particular.
So, okay, going back to sad monsters then. I think I was debating if we should go this far back into your more recent history, I guess. But your Detective Comics run. I was obsessed with your Detective Comics run. I loved everything you did in that, from how you handled Tim Drake to how you handled Batwoman. But specifically, I loved Orphan and Clayface's whole relationship. I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, because I know you had to take him down at the ending to make the whole thing hit, to make it all make sense. When you brought him down, you knew they were going to bring it back? It's DC Comics. Like, we all knew no one could stay dead ever.
Yeah.
Why did you not bring him back for Justice League Dark? Or did you feel maybe you were just done with him at that point?
That's a good question. I mean, for one, I want like he's sort of the wrong type of monster for what I'm going for in Justice League Dark. He was part of the conversation when we were talking about it, but it was, honestly, I saw a different direction that I wanted to take the Clayface story if I returned to it, which is still like in the back of my mind if I ever decide to pull that trigger. But he is a character that I really, really love. And, I remember when I started laying out my, long form plans for Detective Comics, and Clayface was the surprise in it all. Like, I knew that I wanted to, I knew like I had a bit of a connection with him pretty immediately, but he was a character who I really connected with as the story went along. And the relationship with Orphan that developed in that story, him and Cassandra Cain, was like, it was very organic. It wasn't something that I set out to do. That wasn't in one of the like initial pitch documents or anything. But I saw this connection, which is just the fact that, Cassandra sees herself as a monster because she's killed. Unlike the rest of the Bat family, she is a killer, and she feels like she's not worthy of being part of the family, even though she's, she's been on the hero's path for a while now in the current continuity, like that started with Batman and Robin Eternal, and that's what I was from. So I wanted to tap into that because she would be the one most likely to open up to Clayface, because everyone else would be like, this is a big scary Batman villain. Why is he being allowed to like run around in our in our base and work with us in this way? But she would just see him as a person. And and then it's also one of those things where he would see that it's like she's carrying this kind of weight that's she doesn't deserve to be carrying. She has a whole life in front of her. Clayface has committed so many sins, and that was the whole point of the whole part of the victim syndicate arc, where Clayface has really hurt people, really hurt people, and destroyed their lives. And and regardless of where he was mentally and emotionally at that point, like, he has to live with that. And yes, like, Cassandra Cain did something, but she was manipulated into it. She was built into this thing against her will. And then she has spent the rest of her young life atoning. And he wants to give her the tools to become a person. And him being able to connect with her through, the scenes where they would be doing Shakespeare back and forth. And it's just like tapping into his life before he became Clayface as an actor, and sort of giving her voice to some of the emotions that she doesn't know how to talk about. Like, that was something that I'm very proud of all of that and that entire relationship.
Oh, that entire relationship was one of my favorite parts of the Detective Comics run. I remember when it was first announced that you were going to be writing this book with Clayface on it. I won't lie, I was like, Clayface? Really? Of all the characters that are going to go on a team? And right off the bat, I was like, this is something. This is something special. This isn't... You didn't just like, oh, I need to put a villain on it. Guess it'll be Clayface. Like, you had a plan.
Well, the funny thing is that when it started, it was a little bit more like, okay, who's the wild card on the team? Who were like, and we sat in a room sort of talking about who are potential characters who could come into the mix that, who do you see as a part of that lineup that you're immediately like, oh, wow, why are they there? Like, and honestly, the other character that we talked about for that role was Kirk Langstrom, Man-Bat. And that's why that sort of sat in the back of my mind for those few years. And then when we were building out Justice League Dark, it was like, okay, this is, the moment has come. I'm ready to tell my Man-Bat story. But I'm really
all the way back
happy
to
with
Clayface? I was going to say, all the way back at Clayface, you were planning Man-Bat as another character to use in that role?
No. It was one of those things where we were like, when we were just the very initial planning stages, we were talking about like who's the wild card character we can put in, and the choice was kind of, do we want to do Clayface or do we want to do Man-Bat as a part of the team? And Clayface felt like the better choice. I thought the pathos was a bit more powerful. Like, Man-Bat's always been kind of a gray character. Like, he's never been purely evil. Like he's, been reformed. We've seen his family life and all of that. He's not just a pure bad guy, but Clayface has been a much purer bad guy, even though he has a sad backstory. So it was something that, it felt more like I could draw more out of it. And it was also something where, just pure practicality. If you have a team of Batman's Black Ops team, what's the most useful character for that team? And a shapeshifter who can turn into a giant Hulk-sized thing at the same time. He can be both the most stealthy of all of them, but also they're one of their heaviest hitters. So it was just his utility on the team was was a big part of it too.
Right. Well, so going through your basically the treatment of using the monster of Clayface, and then how you've been basically going all in on the horror aspect of the DC universe with Justice League Dark, I want to take a moment to talk about Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah.
This is an indie book you're writing. First off, the art caught my eye right off the bat. The designs, the character designs, the worlds you've set up, just before you were even putting it out, seeing all the announcements for it, I was like, okay, this is definitely going to be good. He showed me he knows how to do horror. This isn't like you just, I've never done this. Let's see what happens. You got this down. What do you want to talk about with that? What inspired you to write Something is Killing the Children? What inspires you to create the main character? I can't think of her name off the top of my head. I know
Erica
the image.
Slaughter.
Erica Slaughter? I didn't even know her last name was Slaughter.
Oh yeah, it's she's a character I'm excited for people to learn more about her and her whole world as the series continues. And we're 2 issues in right now. There's been an incredible response, which I am so grateful for. I think the first issue I think is on its 5th printing. It's super exciting stuff.
That cliffhanger in issue 2, I definitely want to know what's going to happen with that, because the way you were setting it up in issue 1, I'm like, okay, so it's going to be kind of like there's these creepy monsters out there and she's trying to kill them. Yeah, got it. And then issue 2, it's like there's a lot more going on than just she's driving around killing monsters.
Oh yeah, no, there's a whole mythology that I'm really excited to uncover. That we're gonna, over the first arc, we kind of start seeing pieces of it while she's operating in Archer's Peak, and then we'll see more characters come in that really expand it. But it's a whole world that we're trying to build here, and it's a world I'm very, very excited about. And yeah, no, this is honestly, the thing that is most exciting to me about Something is Killing the Children is that the last few years I sort of dedicated everything to DC. All of my, I didn't launch any new creator-owned series, since 2017 was the last time I did a new creator-owned series.
Was that The Woods?
That was, it was one of my apocalypse stories for Boom Studios. It was, it was called Eugenic, was the last one. And that was in 2017.
That one then.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of all of that. I think the best known of those 3 is Memetic, which you can see the sloth right there over my shoulder. Yeah, yes. That was the first apocalypse story. And then I did The Woods and all of that. But that was sort of right at the beginning of my career, around when I was doing Batman Eternal. But while I was working on Detective Comics, I kind of, I just dedicated everything to DC. And I'm incredibly happy with all of the work that I've been able to do. It's a tremendous honor that they've put so much faith in me there. But it was something that, the sorts of comics that made me want to write comics were more, it was Sandman. It was the Vertigo books that I was reading. When I was just out of college, I was an intern at Vertigo. And it was sort of telling personal stories and building my own worlds has always been such an important part to me as a creator and what I want to bring into the comics community. So being able to come back into the creator-owned space and launch a new series, a horror series that feels very unlike anything I'm doing in the superhero world, and has its own voice with its own character, and try to do something different and something that makes a bit of a statement. And it's honestly, I'm just so happy that people have responded to that, because it was something that I needed creatively. I needed to stretch some different muscles. And but like half of the time you're never sure if you're gonna just sort of do that, and it's like it's good that you did that, but nobody really read it. It's off in the corner. But
Right.
people have really, really responded to this, and I think we're in this amazing moment right now in comics. Like this is there's sort of a horror comic renaissance happening right now. Like today.
I'm so thankful for that. I love horror comics.
Me too. And it's just like you've got Joe Hill coming back into the comic space in a big way. You've got some great horror comics coming out of companies like Vault, and then obviously Boom Studios, where I'm Doing Something Is Killing the Children. And it's just like it's so I love horror comics. Horror comics have always been my favorite comics, and I wanted to do something really scary, something that scared me. And something that deeply personal, and Something Is Killing the Children is, sort of the first foray back into the creator-owned space, but it won't be the last. I've got more irons in the fire that are cooking.
Nice. I mean, for me with horror comics, I like them because I find them to be more unpredictable. Superhero books, I love them. I read them all day. But like I said with the Clayface thing, your story was amazing, but at the end, we're like, and Clayface will be back eventually.
Yeah.
Like you ended it on a great note, but I know where this is going to go eventually, whether you write it or not. While horror books, especially in the indie space, you have no idea where that's going to go. There's no guarantee anybody's coming back or what's going to happen. And being horror, they don't normally abide by any normal rules. Even your Justice League Dark, one thing I love about your Justice League Dark is you don't seem to be abiding by normal superhero tropes and rules, like going deeper into the whole Dr. Fate thing with the Lords of Order and stuff like that, and using Bobo Chimp. You'd never see that in a normal comic book run, basically. And that's what I like about that. And that's what I like about these horror books and the renaissance we're getting with these horror books, because that's just going all the way in of, I don't know what's happening. And I love not knowing what's going to happen. From a guy who reads like 30 to 40 books a week, you kind of see a lot of the same patterns emerging in general across books.
Oh, absolutely. No, and that's it. And that's so much of the freedom of it. There is superhero storytelling is a very, it's there's a math to it. And it's a math that you can kind of break and bend, and I'm happy that you pointed out Justice League Dark. I'm making deliberate decisions there, trying to break out of the mold and do something a little different. I want characters that you assume to be the good guys to be the bad guys, and vice versa. Magic has always been a kind of morally gray area, and it's fun playing with some of the more traditional stuff. But at the same time, at the end of a superhero story, good triumphs over evil. And that's what people come to superhero comics for. But you're right. Horror gives storytelling a lot more freedom because, it might end terribly for everyone.
Yeah.
I
kind of like those stories sometimes, though. It ends horribly. They're like, I'm so sad, but I like it.
Absolutely. No, it's good.
So, okay, I do want to state in general with the Justice League Dark and then Justice League Odyssey from Joshua Williamson and Justice League from Scott Snyder, all of you guys seem to be breaking the general mold, which is what I'm enjoying about all of the Justice League trio of books at the moment. So I don't want people to think that it's only like this is the only book that is doing it.
No.
I think yours is doing the best job at it. I'll say that outright. Yours is. I do think it's doing the best job, but all of them are breaking that generalized mold, which I do enjoy.
Thank you.
So Justice League, let's talk a little bit about the trio that you've been a part of. How has that experience been? What do you want to say? What can you say about the whole working with Scott and Josh on this whole... Because you guys are doing your own stories, but you're all kind of keeping them tied together. So, as a matter of fact, I have a playlist, which is just Justice League Rebirth, which is all of your guys' stuff in the timeline, as far as I can tell it's supposed to go.
No, that's all. I mean... Honestly, it's been the most fun that I've ever had in my creative life and my time at DC. Scott and Josh are brothers, and they are two of my closest friends. We have been talking story now for years. This was something that when we were working on, Josh and I were working on sort of the tie-in material to the original Dark Knight's Metal event, and that was the moment that we started seeing people are really responding to this. Let's start planting seeds for what comes after, because at the beginning, Metal's a big crazy event, and it's just what are we going to really be able to drive from this? But then once we started seeing the response and realizing okay, Scott's going to take on Justice League, and that's going to be the core book. And then we want to do something that goes into the cosmic space with Odyssey, and we want something that goes into the magic space with Dark. And we want there to be this larger tapestry that we're building that all comes from this final moment at the end of Death Metal, where the source wall breaks open. And the source wall breaking open, it's a literal plot driving move, but it was also something that we wanted to, there's a like basic symbolism to that, which is, the source wall was the barrier at the edge of the DC universe. It's the thing that limited the scope of story in the DC universe because the mythology was set. Like, all of these things had rules. And then basically we wanted to blow up that wall that held all of the things set in DC continuity and allow us to tell new stories, new exciting stories. So that was sort of the mandate that we wanted to build out from. And it's something that I'm extraordinarily proud of the work we've done. And it's amazing finally seeing all of these threads come together. We're seeing it not only in the core Justice League books, but then through the, Scott and Jock did the Batman Who Laughs miniseries, which then tailed directly into Josh Williamson's Batman Superman series, and then all of these threads really start converging at the end of the year with an event that I'm writing called Year of the Villain Hell Arisen, which I'm doing with Steve Epting. And that is basically, it's Lex Luthor, the apex Lex Luthor we've been seeing develop over the last year and a half, and versus the Batman Who Laughs. And it's sort of, it's a classic aliens versus predator situation. Whoever wins, we lose. And honestly, it's one of the most fun things that I've ever written. The most amazing thing about this era of DC Comics is just being able to take all of the toys out of the toy box and tell big stories that that there are no rules on. A lot of times when you're working in superhero fiction, there are you're sort of kept in a box. Like if you're even on a big book like Batman, Batman's still going to continue to appear in Justice League and stuff like that. So you can affect Gotham, you can change Gotham in a million different ways, but the DC universe is going to be set in some core ways. And the big thing that I am so grateful for is that we have been given the latitude to make some major moves in terms of the DC cosmology and the larger multiverse and all of it. The scale of the story is crazy. Like, if I were to tell the Scott and James from 2014 working on Batman Eternal that like Perpetua and Source Wall and all of this stuff, I'm sure we would both be like, what the hell have you done? What have
That's
you
what
become?
I'm loving about it.
But I mean,
I
there's a huge joy to it. There's and that's what we want to impart on the reader. We wanted to do big, joyous, even though we're dealing with really dark stuff, we want it to be overwhelmingly fun, and we want the feeling of you have all the action figures poured out on the ground in front of you, and you're picking them up and you're smashing them together. We want that kind of spirit.
You guys have definitely achieved it. That's what I was saying. I don't know what's going to happen in Justice League in Dark, and Justice League Odyssey, because you guys are just breaking all the rules. It's not following the traditional flow of a superhero story where you're kind of going to know where it's going to go and stuff like that. That's what I'm enjoying so much about the three of your books, and then how they all intertwine and work together. And there's references that actually ties them all. It reminds me of it's almost like a big reward for a reader like me who reads so many different books that they're all tying together. They're talking about this and this happened over here, and it's a reward for me who does read everything, and I like that. But I don't feel like you need to read everything to truly understand it, because your book runs perfectly fine by itself if you just want to read that magic universe, and that's what I love about them. They tie together, but they don't at the same time, just enough to make it work.
I mean, that was the plan. That's what we wanted. Always wanted it to be modular in a way. We wanted each part to be something full in and of itself, but all telling these huge stories that sort of work in concert with each other. It was, and that's the amazing thing is, we've been able to carry out this big plan that, how it'll all culminate, in the coming year, everyone will have to wait and see, but it's, it's exciting stuff. And, it's just, as a fanboy who is, like reading every issue of Infinite Crisis with like bated breath, like that, just, I remember being in high school when that story came out, and picking up every single issue and like just wishing that one day I would be in the room, like where those sorts of decisions are being made about the characters and the direction of the universe, and and the ability to tell these huge stories with real consequences. It's a dream come true. Like, and it's a pure love letter for all things DC Comics.
You guys are doing such a great job, for the record, that because I get a lot of comments from people when I cover the books, and they say, "Oh, this was wrong," or they messed this up, or continuity got messed up here, or where did this? The only complaint I've been getting, not complaint, I guess, but like the only nitpick I've noticed the fans picking out when we cover these books is that Batman is in every location. I'm like, well, if that's your one nitpick and you just don't read enough comics, they're like, oh yeah, how is Batman looking at the symbol? What is the official symbol called? The one that's in the sky.
The Doom Sigil. Yeah.
The Doom Sigil, yeah. They're like, how is Batman with the Justice League seeing it? And he's over here by himself seeing it, and he's over here. And I'm like, if that's your only nitpick, I think they're doing a great job.
Well, I appreciate it.
So now let's go to the nitty gritty of I don't know what you could talk about and what you can't talk about. And this is going to be the fun part, because we're going to be playing in a minefield.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I'll open up with the question that I got asked, because I don't know the answer to this, because I'll admit, I don't follow solicits. I like the surprise. I like to know, like, oh, what's happening? Because you look at solicits, you're like, in 6 months, Batman died. Okay. And then, for the record, everybody watching, that's not in the solicits right now. I'm just saying that's the kind of stuff we see. So I avoid them for that reason. Justice League Dark, first off, the big question I've gotten asked by a couple people was, is it going to be ending with you picking up on the Batman run?
The answer there is an emphatic no. The thing that I've said in a few places, and there'll be more news on this publicly, is I might bring in a little bit of help to ease the transition as I get gearing up on Batman. But the Justice League Dark has been telling a big story since issue number 1, and that story is not finished, and and I intend to finish the story that I set out to tell. So this is something that I am, stay tuned. There will be more news on this front than very shortly, but I am not just hightailing it out of Justice League Dark.
Okay, because as a fan of books like Justice League Dark that are a little more out there, magical, dark world kind of stuff, and in horror books, we have a tendency to get like really good stories ramped up, and then it didn't sell, so we're gonna cancel that and move the writer over to this project, and then we're all just sitting here going, oh, another one didn't end. So that's exciting to hear that it's not gonna be wrapped up so that you can move over to Batman. Which then leads us to the question that everyone wants to know. What can you say about your Batman? What's inspired you? Where do you want to bring it without telling us where it's going? I don't know what to ask and what you can answer. So
no, that's super fair. No, it's and I need to be very careful about my answers to all of this.
Which is why I don't want to be like, so who's Batman's new sidekick?
I mean, the biggest things that I can say is, what has been my kind of guiding light for this story is I've been calling it an action horror story. It's I've been writing a lot of things and going back and forth with my editors and the artists that I'm working with, and trying to really set the tone of the sort of story that we want to tell. And I want to do something scary. I think that, my favorite Batman stories have that element of horror to them, because I think an element that gets forgotten about Batman is that he is a scary character. Like, this is, he puts on the costume to put fear in the hearts of the villains he's facing. It's criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot, and he plays into that. And then, how playing off of the idea of how Batman uses the idea of Batman as a weapon to instill superstition and instill cowardice is very core to him as a character. And, and it's also one of those things where putting Batman in a situation where he's afraid is it gives it weight, because it takes a lot to scare Batman. So that's sort of part of my challenge to myself in the next year. This is going to be a story that's built on for the last year, we've seen Bane take over Gotham City. He is, he's in the Batcave. He's taken over, Arkham, the police department, all of that. It's, the city has been compromised in this fundamental way. And then on top of that, we have seen Batman's core, emotional cast surrounding him change in a really, really massive way, which means that the Batman of January, of issue 86, where I'm coming in, is in a much different place than he was a year ago. And these are the moments where Batman needs to pull together and rebuild. And, in the face of loss, he needs to become stronger. And that is a real driving force for this year. This is something that the rebuilding of Gotham in the wake of Bane, both in a thematic way and then in some ways, a very literal way, is going to drive the story forward. And what are Batman's designs for the city, and who else has designs for the city? And it's the story that I want to tell is going to bring some of his, core villains, the core cast of Batman villains that people all know and love, to the forefront, and really examine their relationship with Batman and their relationship to the city itself.
Okay, that sounds like an awesome ride, and I'm excited to hear about what's going to happen with this. I don't know if you can answer this, but it's just something that struck me as a bit odd. You might not even know the answer to this, but
okay.
So you're going to pick up at Batman 86, right?
Yes.
Okay. They've recently been restarting every time they had a new writer for basically number one, as what we've seen. I'm just curious as to why we're going to continue and why they weren't just going to restart it with you, or if you can answer, or if you just don't even know the answer. You're just like, no, they told me it's 86.
I mean, I don't know how much I can say to speak to that, but I know that they're I think the constant restarting is something that retailers can get upset about. And I know there's a cleanness to a new number one, but it's also something that, I want to be very clear. We are building off of the continuity of the last few years. This isn't a, totally clean continuity reset kind of moment. This is the continuation of the world that Batman has been living in, from Scott to Tom to now. And this is, that continuation is very much a part of it. And I love holding to the classic numbering, nothing would make me happier as if we even went all the way and did what we did when I came on to Detective and went to the full classic numbering. But
I miss those.
I like the high numbers. There's something very satisfying. I'm very happy that my Detective run started with 934 and 934 to 981. I'm probably, now that I said that confidently, that won't be the right that those aren't the right numbers, but it's that. I'm happy that it's just going to continue. I like when stories just there's something core superhero about that. And it's core to the challenges of the book too, where it's just challenges as a writer, where it's just the last person, threw some curveballs that then you have to catch. And it's that is part of working in a superhero universe, and is something that I think, I don't think fans like it when people just come in and just raise the ground, raise everything to the ground, and then just, don't pay it, don't pick up on the threads that have been, playing out for a while. I want to pick up on threads. I want to make sure that the stories that people have read and loved matter. And that goes all the way back to, everything from the recent era.
Yeah. No, let me be clear. I prefer the higher numbers myself.
Yeah.
I just noticed a trend recently between Marvel and DC where it's like new writer #1, new writer #1, or Spider-Gwen's is actually the most egregious of this whole thing, where they wouldn't even change the writing team. They just gave her a new #1 every like 12 issues.
Oh yeah.
And they would even be like, and it's also volume 1. I'm like, now I'm lost. I don't know where to go.
Yeah, no, there's always a bit of a struggle when it comes to, like, I mean, I think part of it is just, everyone always wants big sales and all of that, and new #1 gets you big sales, but yeah, I would be happy if everything just went to classic numbering, but then, but I do want like big new takes. I want the spirit, like my issue 86 has the spirit of a new #1. I want to make it clear that's a jumping on point, even though I'm picking up threads for what's come before. If you haven't read a Batman story in the last, 2 or 3 years, you can come in clean with issue 86. But it is the start of a big new story.
You see, I'm gonna take you up on that challenge then. I've got people at our office that completely dislike Tom King's run. I am enjoying Tom King's run, and I enjoyed all of Scott Snyder's run. So I'm that fan that has been reading all the way through, and then I got people that dropped off of it probably, I think, at the start of Tom King's run. So it'll be interesting to see the different opinions on that issue 86.
Oh yeah,
if it's a good jumping on point.
I'm terrified. I am straight up terrified. It's like I am tremendously proud of the script. I've been fine tuning it. I've been running it by my closest friends. I want these, I promise you, I'm giving this my all. And the pages that are coming in from Tony Daniel are just absolutely incredible. I'm so excited about this book, but it is something that I am, it'll sink or swim on its own merits. And that's, that's how it goes. So I'm going to bring it. I want to be, the best superhero comic I've ever written. And that is the challenge that I'm, setting out to myself.
I mean, that's a high challenge, and you picked Batman for it. So, I'm excited. Like I said, I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of where Batman's gone. You're not just going to throw it all up and start it all over. I get that the fans, there are things that Tom King did that they aren't a fan of. That's fine. But I would have hated you to see everything go away because it got a weird, I don't even want to say backlash because it still sold well, but everyone likes, if you go on Twitter, you always hear about people complaining about it.
I mean, and I think everyone has different tastes, and everyone has, there are always stories that people respond to or don't respond to, but this is something where, I want, but the challenge of a superhero universe is building off of what's come before, and I think tonally my run's going to be different than what Tom's been doing, but it's going to be very respectful of what Tom's been doing. So, you will see, I'm excited for people to see how I've approached this.
Yeah. Your direction on the whole thing. See what people say about that. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of anything else that we could really, what haven't we tackled that you wanted to talk about?
We've tackled
today?
Pretty much everything. This is, everything else that we're working on, at DC and outside of DC is all very, I've got a lot of things going on. I am very, very excited for people to find out about the secret things that I can't talk about yet, and but I mean, the biggest thing is just, it's Gotham in 2020. I'm trying to build something really, really big, really awesome, and I hope fans love it.
All right. Well, I mean, there's not much else to talk about as far as I can think of. Is there anything else you want to last minute promote? You want to talk about Something is Killing the Children again, or anything along those lines?
So yeah, Something is Killing the Children #3 will be out in November. The first 2 issues are out right now. They're available on Comicsology. I think the 5th printing is I wish I knew offhand when that 5th printing's coming out, but
gotcha.
If you missed it, I recommend checking it out on Comicsology right now, or asking your local comic shop if they have any copies. People seem to like it, so I hope you like it too. It's a good story for Halloween, and I'm just extremely excited about everything we're building at DC right now, and everything that I'm building outside of it, and I hope you come along for the ride.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys watching enjoyed this interview, and we're going to cut back to the segment of the regular show we popped it into. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope.
All right, have a good one.
So we actually sat here for the entire 45-minute interview.
Just staring at the screen.
You're just staring, waiting for you to come back to this.
I was so alone.
I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget, you can find this show on Spotify, iTunes, Patreon, Twitch, YouTube. We film it every
MySpace.
Thursday. Not on MySpace. The only place we don't go. But we are on Friendster.
Friendster.
LinkedIn, I believe.
LinkedIn, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, we do film it Thursday, and over the course of Thursday to Saturday, it gets released in all of these various locations. And thank you guys for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. It's because of support like yours that these two get jobs.
Yay.
Thank you.
And hope you're not going to see this episode unless you watched it live. Well, even the full episode won't be up on time. But either way, I hope you had a great Halloween. We definitely did, if you can't figure that out. And don't forget about our sponsor, G Fuel, where you can get 10% off your order if you go use the code COMICS at checkout. And I'll see you guys next time, right here at Comics Experiment.
Stay spooky, everybody.
Autobots roll out.
Bye.